Hello, everybody. This is Laura. You're watching the Beanbird 2 channel where we talk about testimonies and the goodness of God. This testimony comes around the 2008 timeframe when the housing market crash was happening. My husband and I had a own-to-home. So this was a house that he had purchased before we were married. And when the housing crash happened, the house was devalued by a lot. And this coupled with a few other things that were going on in our lives, David was transitioning in his job, and it made the mortgage difficult to afford. But also, we discovered that there was a problem with the home when we bought it. Initially, the problem was disguised because the previous owners had spackled and painted over a foundation crack in the house. And after the statute of limitations had expired, the spackle had started coming off, and we discovered this massive foundation crack. And so we had a couple estimates done on what it would cost to repair the damage, and the price was $55,000. Since we were having a difficult time even making the mortgage payment, the fact of having to deal with a repair of such magnitude was just out of the question. We knew that we couldn't afford it. And from the exterior of the home, we could begin to see that the house was actually separating and splitting in half. And if you put a marble on the floor of the family room, it would literally roll to one side of the home. And so we knew that long term, the house was going to have the foundation fixed. And we knew that if we were going to try to sell the home, that we would have to disclose the foundation crack. And that also greatly devalued the home. So here we found ourselves in this difficult situation of needing to sell a house so that we could downsize to something more affordable, but the house having such a major flaw that the price was no longer worth what we had paid for it. So we found a realtor who knew about short sales and how to do it. And back then in 2008, it was kind of a newer thing. People had never even heard about it that were friends with me and would say short sale, and they'd say, "What's that?" And now everybody knows what that is because they went through all that time in the past. But back then it was kind of an unheard of thing of what is a short sale and how do you do it and what does it take to qualify. Anyway, so this realtor was trying to sell the home for the value that it was worth with the foundation crack in it. And the bank would then accept that price theoretically, and that was the short sale, is the difference between what we paid for it versus what we sold it for, and the loss in the middle. And so we tried selling the home for a year, and we had no offers. And we were praying about it, and just no offers were coming through. And we had a wonderful man from church who is just a very loving, kind man, and he had offered to help us get out of this difficult situation. He met with us and he said, I love your family. I'd love to help you guys out. Like, how much money would it take to fix this for you, for this house, to not, for you guys to get out of the situation? And it was a wonderful offer, and my husband prayed about it, and he said, I really feel like the Lord is telling me that we need to let the house go. And that's difficult. That's a really difficult thing, especially when we have housing where, it's where we live, and it's our environment where we, put our roots down, and it's hard to sometimes let go of those things. And I had asked my husband, are you sure, like, this is the right thing? And he just felt really resolute. He felt a peace from God about it. He was like, no, I really feel like we're supposed to let the house go. So we continued trying to sell the home. And a week before the deadline, there was a deadline where we had to sell it by, or else it would move into foreclosure. And the week before that deadline, the offer came in. And we were able to continue with that short sale and finalize it and move out. And the Lord provided a rental place that was a great place for us to go to. It was a really nice community of townhouses. It was in a good location. And we were able to get a corner unit, which was really nice, which meant we only had one side neighbor. And what I wanted to say is that even when things don't go as we would prefer them to go, when we go through difficult situations, it sometimes means letting go of something that we don't want to let go of. But we just tried to keep our focus on the fact that this is not our final destination. Heaven is our home. And we want to keep open hand, that we're willing to release and let go of anything that the Lord calls us to release and let go of. But God did amazing things through this difficult situation. When we moved into the townhouse, we were able to meet two families that we were able to help. One of them was recently divorced, and we were able to minister to them. And the other family was going through some difficult times, and we were able to provide that loving relationship. And we invited them to our church, and they came and they became established in our church, and they found other connections that helped them. And we wouldn't have met either of those people if we didn't live in those townhouses. And so that's one way that God redeemed the situation. Another way that God redeemed the situation was shortly after that, my husband received a job offer for out of state. When we had first got married, we talked about wanting to move out of state and that our desire was to move to the South. We were currently in Michigan at that time, and we really wanted to move to the South. And this job offer came through. Since we were in a rental, we were able to relocate to the South, and we didn't have any ties that would resist us from moving. The having to own a home, you're kind of in that area where you need to sell the home. And Michigan was very slow in getting their home values back up after 2008. The rest of the country recovered a lot faster, but Michigan was very slow moving in the home values changing. So if we had been staying in our old house, it would have been difficult or impossible to relocate when the time came. And the Lord called us to this new job in the South, and all the doors opened up like the most amazing way. We had done the short sale, which made it so it would be 3 years before we could finance a home again. And it made financing anything on credit difficult. And when we were in the relocation process, we needed a corporate credit card in order to put my husband's move on there, because for a while he was going to be in Ohio, and his company had told him just put the charges on the corporate card for the Ohio stay until you were able to move to the final destination in the South. And when he applied for the corporate card, and initially had come back declined. And so he was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do if we can't get this corporate card? Then we wouldn't be able to do the move, because they had given him permission to put his nightly hotel stays and everything on there. And so we prayed about it. And the way that God moved in that prayer was so powerful, because he called the credit card company, and it went like this. The lady answered the phone, and she said, hello, how can I help you? And my husband said how he had applied for this card and it came back denied. And she said, oh, I see here. And then he heard the clicking of the computer. And then she said, okay, you're all set. And would you like me to overnight that to you? And he was just stunned, like, what? It was so easy. He didn't even hardly have to say anything. And he told me later, joking, that he's like, it was like, hello, this is God. How can I help you? Yes, can I overnight you that card? It was that easy. And he just was like, what an amazing answer to prayer that was. So we were able to get the corporate card. It came the next day. And at that time, we only had one vehicle, but because my husband was going to be living in Ohio for a while, and then I was going to continue on to North Carolina, which was going to be his second location where we were going to live in North Carolina. And we were going to need 2 cars for that to happen, because he was going to drive to one state and I was supposed to drive the family to the other. Well, at this time, we only had the one vehicle. And so my husband's like, we're going to need a second car. So let's pray about it. We knew that we couldn't get finance for anything after going through that short sale with the house, and it was going to require a miracle to be able to get a second car of any kind. So we went to pursue a lease, and we went to the Ford dealership, and we applied for a car to purchase, and we were looking for the cheapest car that they had, which at that time was the Fiesta SE, and it was a manual transmission. And the finance guy came out and he said, "You're not going to believe this. They gave you approved that, like your credit application came approved for a new car with the lowest interest rate that they had offered at that time. I don't remember what it was, but it was whatever the going deal was approved." And he said, "The bank didn't see your short sale." He goes, "I have no idea how that happened." He said, "But if you just sign here, we can get you that vehicle today." And so that was another miracle that I don't even know how that's possible. I used to sell cars, and I have never heard of a bank not seeing a short sale on a credit report. So we were able to get the car that we needed, and that was amazing. And then we needed a rental home to get into in North Carolina. And I found this amazing rental, and the rent just seemed too good to be true. It was a fairly large size home, and it was in a nice neighborhood. It was 6 bedrooms, which was huge compared to what I was used to. And the rent was really low. I feel like it was like $1,200 a month. It was really low. And so I called a realtor in North Carolina and I said, "Can you look at this property that's for rent and just see if this was legitimate?" And so he said, "Sure." So he went down there and he looked at the rental, and he called me in Michigan and he said, "Yeah, this looks like an amazing place and an amazing deal." So he helped me get the lease for us to get that home. And when we drove down to North Carolina, sight unseen, we pulled up in front of the house, and it was great. There was nothing wrong with it. It was in a great neighborhood. And even initially, there was a mix-up with the key that the what is it called? The rental company that was the rental management company had given me the wrong key for the property. And so me and the kids were sitting outside the house with this really hot sun in the south. It was definitely in the 90s, and we were locked out of the property. So I was calling my husband about, getting the right key, and a neighbor came out and offered us drinks, offered us chairs, and I thought, wow, this is so amazing. I can't imagine somebody doing this. Such kindness, being shown when they don't even know who we are. And my husband was able to get the key situation sorted out. And we were just thanking God that through it all, He made a way. And when we let go of the Michigan house through the short sale, it really did open the door for all these other things to happen that we could in no way have foreseen. And when the Lord opened the door for us to move to North Carolina, it was like green light after green light after green light after green light. And so we try to remember that this happened to us in the past when we face difficult times now. And even now, we're thinking about, the things that are happening, and we're wondering how we need to prepare, as far as like downsizing our lives. And it's nice to remember how the Lord was with us in these past instances, and the way that God made a way where there was no way, whether it was getting a car that we should not have qualified for, getting a rental that we also should not have qualified for, getting the corporate card, which should have been not approved. And He just made supernatural doors open for us to make our path clear when it was the right timing. And so it really, one of the greatest things that I recall is just remembering the Lord's goodness and kindness. And that does help me today as we go through 2023 and all of its trials. So I hope that helps you, and take care. I'd love to see you guys in the comments. Like, subscribe, and see you tomorrow.